just going through some things that I've taken pictures before of, and if people had access to my phone, would have been pretty easy to present it as themselves. But having the physical, tangible proof here with me, along with the picture that I talked about in the 4.2 details that I found outside as I was walking up, and it's one of the pictures that it's in my. I had initially taken some pictures of old family photos just in case I was never here or they were lost or God forbid something else happened, so I'd have some. And those are images 3 and some other videos. These are the actual photos. That is me right here, my mom, and background is my aunt and my cousin, who's a year younger than me. I don't have a sister. Just some of these pictures that are in those images 3. Here, try this. Want some Chicago snow? Even back then, I was like, are you kidding me? What are you giving me? 2-year-old nightclub singer. Little Noah's Ark. That was the girl that lived a floor above me in the Shoreland, Rachel. But I haven't seen her since I was 4, and she moved to Arkansas, apparently. Fascinated by the popcorn making machine technology, you know? These are the ones that I can find right now and weren't stolen, maybe, or moved somewhere else. You can see the lawn chairs in High by the Beach. There's a lot of overlaps of these things. Female. Here you have a last will and testament. Just ticket stubs, all kinds of old things. Clothing from my childhood. And this is from my, intersection timing words, but also some revelatory, fluttery stylistic elements, how I came up with that. Just recounting of that night. This is already on some of my videos, or in some of my videos, so Block Universe. Talked a lot about that with the Nobel Prize. Mentioned that. Listening to Time and Space Illusion video, as he says at the beginning, I looked to see 2 spheres on the sidewalk. As barriers meant I thought they collided. Not long after, and it's confirmed, there was someone nearly crashed into me. This was Monday or Tuesday. It was in the context of science, and so, and also how it would end. That was on her pin, the Truman Show, and he says, I was wondering that myself, and I had just bought some Dippin' Dots. Brings me back to my childhood, 6th grade, primarily. And the little sayings on the back of on the underlid of the lid. And I thought, I should eat. I was driving home and driving around and doing some of this and thinking, I should eat that before it melts. And so I went to grab it, open it up, and inside the Dippin' Dots said, I melt with you. And so climate change, and I knew something about that at the time. So all these things are just here I'm talking about how the radio turned on by itself, saying they've arrived or they've arrived. It's in the context of the Pleiades, and that Red Hot Chili Peppers song that says, coming from the exact lyrics, coming from space, teacher of the Pleiades. Well, yeah. There's a lot of things that I've put in videos before, or maybe not, but were, I thought, important to pull some concepts together and complete them here on my digital channel, where it is a conceptual art channel, and I very much draw from my own experiences, and if you want to think of like a stylist or something like that, it pulls looks and whatnot, but there's that element of reality to it, and a good thing, considering I very much tracked my progress and kept things in some sort of timeline, documented sense. So when everything became very convoluted and maybe it's for another video, just talking about different timelines or concepts therein and predictions, but stemming from my trend forecasting studies background, I was experiment my value of ideas project, because why should we value ideas? They're what direct everything within these larger frameworks, and knowing which ones to pick or which direction to go is utmost importance. So that's why you should hire me to be a creative director or artistic director and make those types of decisions and lead a brand forward. Hence the value of ideas and why they're not just free. Although on this channel, there had to be a time span in order to prove their validity. And so in the meantime, I feel like sometimes those things were taken advantage of, but at the same time, there was some sort of necessity within people participating on a larger scale, not around here so much, but at all, but in campaigns and videos and creating discussions, so that I then could connect all these. It's more like the thematic or symbolic entanglement, where I was able to connect visuals and codes and cues and words, which I thought were pretty easy to find within some very obvious contexts, like campaigns and visuals that might seem more superficial, that people would be able to appreciate on different levels, if not just for the aesthetics, but hopefully then be able to see how they're reiterated and repeated and in different contexts, but then still brought together and connected in ways that create some kind of visual of quantum entanglement and all these other concepts we've talked about, as kind of a lot of the point, a lot of the purpose of this is to be able to scale things down to a level that's comprehensible or fathomable within not only a context I'm familiar with, so that I can explore these ideas, but also connect with other people that might have similar interests. But who's anyone to think that we can comprehend these unimaginable, almost unimaginable concepts and theories and whatnot, and the only way to even begin to is to bring it down to a level that, or scale that we can comprehend, and to translate it into studies and areas that we're familiar with, such as can you please not interrupt? Can you please not interrupt? I'm recording something. Can you please not interrupt? So that we can more fully grasp the concepts that are completely. Now I've been interrupted, so I'm just going to quit here, and I'm always adding things to, or tying things together, finding one last video to add to a playlist or something like that I think will tie things together. But for the most part, a lot of this information is, well, I value it. So I think for the most part, as much as I want people to participate and engage in conversations having to do with all these topics, it became kind of like a one-way street. And, well, it is my livelihood, so I'm going to be in career. So there is no need for me to be represented by someone, I guess, has identified themselves as lucky. I was playing out different aspects of my birth chart, which I found very just unsettling and disconcerting, especially when presented as fact or as though they were able to collect on my behalf as my Aries midheaven. That's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Just that's ridiculous. Considering I'm a conceptual artist, not a hairdresser, and there's no need for anyone to represent me in my own birth chart, as it's all in me, all in my birth chart, all in one woman, mind, body, and soul. The fact that that was divvied up and against my will without consideration of how it might make me feel or what it might do to my overall career or ability to find work and be taken seriously within those areas of my life and whatnot, and not negated or denied as being who I am in an effort to, I guess, appease some of these people that were playing out parts of my life or aspects of my birth chart. Just unfathomably disrespectful and mentally, emotionally abusive, because it goes into so many other areas of life that would be affected by that. And it's not a game. And while I was generous enough to share my own reference birth chart and the overlaps and parallels with the tarot and my own translations for those placements and overlaps and my timing translations and whatnot, that I've noted over the years, it's really not contingent on anyone or anything. A driving experiment is within a context, though timing and the things that I note, instances, occurrences happen all the time. It's not contingent on having a car or listening to a radio. It's these things that are very much of my own. And kind of boggles my mind that people would question me, the one who initiated, and as though entitled to. None of those things were necessary, nor contriving problems in order to try to turn me into a mirror in order to do what I was already doing, but that I'm not obligated to do nor responsible for, as it was an extension of a project that I was doing at the time, the Valley of Ideas, tracking trends and incorporating into the alchemical cycle, comparing to the alchemical cycle and dividing them up into phases and momentum of a trend as it progresses through the cycle and how that reflects on commercial successes of businesses or being able to accurately choose for oneself, tying into the perceptual learning and making good decisions, quick decisions, best decisions, sound decisions more accurately, being able to choose for oneself, noticing trends, markers, things like that. It was all part of this project, and as most trend forecasters do confirm their predictions, as you can see if you follow any WGSN confirmation, prediction confirmation, forecast confirmation. I am my own business woman and the artist creating it and all of it. So well, I can see why people might get confused at times. It's just not my priority to hold people's hands throughout my art practice progress or projects that I'm doing and explain things to a degree that I'd hope people appreciate it, but it only allowed people to, I guess, from their point of view, think that they were allowed to take and present themselves as me or as people that created something that they just couldn't have, as they aren't me, and I pull from my own experiences as it's intrinsically entwined with my life. Artist experience, or artist experience and participation, as described and defined by John Dewey, the founder of Lab School. That's where I went growing up, although I put into a context to parameters within my art practice and invited people to participate within campaigns and songs and whatnot within parameters, again, with those codes, alchemical codes, visuals and whatnot, so there wouldn't have to be any sort of, why didn't you give me credit, since a lot of them were universal codes and could have just avoided a lot of that. And then people could have just been a little bit more upfront with, where they're getting inspiration, if it was on a personal level or from personal stories, like songs that I was pretty much crucified for, but I'm like, I didn't write those songs, they just incorporated my codes. And those codes being something like the guitar that's smashed in the beginning of Pillow Talk or in Harley's in Hawaii. These repeating codes or repeating visuals is what I was getting at, thematic entanglement, so that they were more objective and visual, and like I've described before, a tube of paint that is one color but dispersed amongst many canvases, taking on different shapes and forms, different meaning within each context. That was how I utilized and incorporated and brought together videos that I considered a medium and were in and of themselves their own art, and that wasn't denied. People, obviously, I wouldn't make my own parodies of their music videos or campaigns. You know what I mean? Their vision was respected, and I would have appreciated the same, and made clear that credit was necessary and expected as much. That's the value of ideas is kind of the antithesis of what the fuck that point was. But I did appreciate people participating to some degree, and where they could, credit without being like awkward, as it was pulled in little bits here and there, and it was just supposed to be all encompassing and in genres and mediums or expressions and types of music and visuals and types of industries all brought together, so that you could see how it all works together on some larger scale. And there's just so much. There's so much that I feel like people reduce down to some sort of one dimension of representing only them, when that's where I began, pulling from my own experiences and interests, but I let it speak for itself, I think, in many respects. Although I felt like it was important to define reasons for why I chose certain things, and so that people could more easily follow along and appreciate it in those contexts, as context is everything. Otherwise, we'd all just be one homogenous mess and producing the same work. And why would you even go to a museum, or why would you even create art? You could just go see someone else's interpretation of the same, whatever. Anyways, I've said all these things so many times in my home that I feel like when I go outside and people, I repeat something, I said that last week. It's like, oh, you mean by illegally surveilling me? That I was not aware of. Also disconcerting. It's not really a partnership or treating someone equally when you leave them in the dark. And like I said, it's not participating or working with someone or running someone's life, as they like to taunt and mock around here, when you leave the person out whose life it is and whose art practices and initiative it is and whose experiences that I'm drawing from mine. Because in that case, it's just called fraud, identity fraud, impersonation, and forgery, which I'm very much aware has gone on, and people have done in order to have some sort of control or clause in what they know would be not acceptable. Otherwise, they would have told me, right? So, I think for the time being, only what's necessary is going up here. And as much as I like it to document a lot of things, reference, never know, it might apply later. And that's pretty much how I've been doing these things this whole time. It has been aware how much things have been taken advantage of identity wise, and just to say that I have my own documentation, and why would you risk it, kind of thing. Yeah, I appreciate the support from other people.